Welcome back, all you Fabricans and Fleshbags, to the super, not funny show, GamerCast. And the GamerCast is where we talk about all things video games. That's going to be PC gaming, console gaming, handheld gaming, even mobile gaming if we feel like that. And I am your host, Mo and LADI, your resident Fabricant and comment extraordinaire on all things pop culture, joined by my co-host, the anime enthusiast, superhero fanatic, and of course, video game expert and designer, my good friend Lottie. Lottie, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Got a nice little, a few topics to talk about on this GamerCast, and I'm excited to not only talk about it, but also get your opinion on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, on the GamerCast, we're kind of like, one person can be considered a casual. That would be me. I'm a casual gamer. I like video games, but it's not exactly the thing that I'm most knowledgeable about. But we know Lottie is the hardcore gamer. He could tell you all about the hardware and software and all that stuff. And so we kind of want to, bring a casual and a hardcore perspective together to see if we can figure out what's going on in the world of video games. So we're going to start that off today with a few topics. So, Lottie, there's the Nintendo Switch, a pretty popular console. I have one, you have one, everyone seems to have one. Do they play them? I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder about it so much. It is kind of cool to have, though. And some people are really interested in maybe a step up in the hardware, the same way that the Xbox One had a 4K, upgraded Pro version, and the PS4 had a Pro version. And so there's been rumors. I have heard of it. The casual ass gamer like myself have heard about the Switch Pro rumors. And so there seems to be yet more rumors, inside sources, talking about potential Switch Pro, hardware updates. And I don't know what's going on there. What's going on over there?
So these new rumors are not coming from Nintendo sources. They're coming from Nvidia, the people who make the chip for Nintendo. And what we heard, what we've been hearing is that Nvidia is really, really, really pissed off with Nintendo. Like so pissed off that they refuse to make any more of the chips to make Nintendo Switches. Nintendo had to desperately buy 30 million of those chips before Nvidia told Samsung to cut the cord. And this is not even rumor. This is absolute fact. You can actually find it you can actually see the work order that Nintendo put out for those 30 million chips. So regardless of what people may think that the Switch Pro rumors are fake or real, the Switch is coming to an end. And it's not because of the popularity, it's because the hardware in the Switch is so old that Nvidia just is like, we're literally giving you guys these things for a penny on a dollar because it's their old software, and Nintendo's making millions of dollars off of it, which, some people are like saying Nvidia is wrong for this, but honestly, how would you feel, Maurice, that let's say you sold me, let's say one of your, pops, one of your pops, like let's say you sold me a rare pop, right? Just, as a friend. And I went behind your back and sold it for $5,000.
Right.
You will feel some kind of way for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is what Nintendo's doing to Nvidia. Nvidia's selling these chips, and people are like, well, Nvidia can up the price. They can't because the price is set for that thing. So they cannot up the price on it. Nintendo is not only pimping gamers, they're pimping their chip maker. And Nvidia is at this point saying, no, we're not going to do this. So Nintendo now is at a crossroad. They either hold on for dear life the Nintendo Switch, or start making, or end the Switch's life early. And I watched this video from this guy on YouTube. You know, anybody
Oh shoot!
listening to,
I must say, hang. Beware of that.
Yeah.
of people on YouTube.
I know, I completely agree. But these people actually, this guy's actually a very good source. I vented him. I've been listening to him for over a year and a half, and almost everything he says is true. It is not just Nintendo stuff. He does everything: PlayStation, PC, Xbox. A lot of the knowledge that I have comes from him.
Right.
And his name is Moore's Law is Dead. And he did a roadmap of Nintendo. And Nintendo always does this. And now that he mentioned it, it is absolutely true. Nintendo always tries to make, before they end their console, they make sort of like a little bit better version before their new console comes out. And they've been doing this since the beginning of time, since they first started. Like you said, with the original Nintendo, they made, on top of that, they added the Virtual Boy to the Nintendo. Then they made the Super Nintendo. What was the other part they added to the Super Nintendo? I forgot what it was called. Just slipped my mind.
There was a Super. What, didn't they have like a CD, or they were proposing to do a CD?
Yeah. No, it was. There was something, I forgot what it was. You could connect it to the Super Nintendo right before they made the N64.
Oh Lord, I don't know.
There was like weird stuff. Then you know how they had the expansion pack. I know you remember the expansion pack for N64. Like those last few, like the last games of the generation of N64, you had to have that expansion pack to play those games.
Mm-hmm.
Then with the GameCube, they made the GameCube that can play every game, that can play almost any Nintendo game with the Game Boy player and all that stuff.
Right.
Then with the Wii, they created the Wii DVD. Remember that black Wii that could play DVDs?
Right.
They didn't do that they didn't do one for the Wii U because the Wii U just sucked and died very quickly. But now with the Switch OLED, and it's true. Like they do this all the time. Also with their handhelds. When the Game Boy Color was ending, they made the Game Boy Pocket. When the Game Boy Advance was ending, they made the SP. When the Game Boy DS was ending, they made the DS XL.
Right.
You know what I mean? 3D. When the 3D was ending, they made a 3D Lite. It's just what they do. Right before a new version comes out, they make one last version. They get everybody interested in buying it. And this is what they're doing. Nintendo, I believe in the next year, or maybe two, by at least 2023, beginning of 2023, we're going to see a new Nintendo console, and it is going to have Nvidia's latest stuff in it. Because what we're hearing is that Nvidia is refusing to let Nintendo use any of their old architectures. They literally have told Nintendo, no, we will not, because Nintendo wants to use Pascal, the 10 series, the 1060, the 1070, they wanted to use that one.
Right.
That hard software. And Nvidia said, no, you're not using that. They actually used the 20 series, Turing. No. They said, you are going to use our latest hardware, which is going to be Lovelace. And that's supposed to be coming out mid to end of 2022. So you see how it's lining up with the Switch. The Switch Pro. Well, I don't know if they're going to call it the Switch Pro. They might call it the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever. But Nintendo is going to have to innovate, and it's not because that they want to innovate, it's because they're being forced to innovate. I'm lukewarm on this a little bit because, one, I'm happy to see that there's going to be some innovation with Nintendo, because from what I'm hearing with Nvidia, and usually Nvidia rumors are usually almost spot on, that they're going to want this console to at least do 4K 60.
Right.
Maybe not docked. I mean, maybe not handheld, but dock, they want it to at least do 4K 60 with maybe DLSS, which is their super sampling software. So I'm happy to hear that, but I'm also lukewarm because it's not because Nintendo wants to do it. It's because they're being forced to do it. And I just have a feeling Nintendo's going to find a way. They're going to find a way to be cheap in this scenario. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, well, I don't doubt that. Nintendo's MO is to make, every company's MO is to make money, but their MO is to make money on hardware. They don't believe, and it makes sense. I mean, they're not. Third parties aren't exactly beating a path to their door unless they are third parties who don't need, super high frame rate, 4K graphics, and all the computing power, that's required to make that happen. So, there's a lot more, let's call it a casual audience, that are likely to, a lot more of a younger gamer audience that are likely to be engaged in what a Switch. And so as a result, yes, all they're thinking is hardware sales are going to make us money, and the less we spend on the hardware, the more money we're going to make. So I agree with you that they are going to try their hardest to not spend as much, to spend as little as they can as far as business is required. And Nvidia playing a little hardball, it's expected. But the truth is that unless Nvidia and AMD are sort of like, let's make sure that they have to upgrade to our size, which doesn't seem like a very smart thing to do. I think that as a provider of hardware, you have to more or less make what your customer wants, and not all customers want the bleeding edge stuff.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. But the only thing that I feel that Nvidia, the reason why they're also being so heavy-handed with Nintendo is because, like you just said, AMD. Look at what the Xbox and the PS5 are doing, and look at what the Nintendo Switch is doing, and it has Nvidia's name on it.
Right.
It has been, it's not even been rumor, it has been known that the CEO of Nvidia, Jensen, is a sore loser. He does not like losing in anything. And not only, he's also pissed off by the Steam Deck, because Steam Deck is also an AMD console. He doesn't like to see that what AMD is doing. And in his mind, he's like, we can do it just as good. And like you said, their customer, Nintendo, might be like, we don't care about that. But Nvidia's like, well, you're also hurting our bottom line, because this stuff matters, because, Nvidia wants to get into other stuff, like how they're trying to make like the Nvidia Shield and everything. Nvidia wants to get into this, but shareholders are not going to feel like they should spend money when anything they make that is not a graphics card can barely run a game at 1080p 30.
Right.
That makes them look bad at the same time. So it's like, yeah, you're my customer, but you as my customer, you're making me look like I can't do anything. So
right. Yeah, I think, just again, as a person that's not deep into this stuff, this sort of like jockeying around sort of doesn't mean anything to a casual gamer, because I'm just like, okay, it's a Nintendo. I never expect Nintendo graphics to be up to the par of a PlayStation or an Xbox. I never expect its hardware to be great. I mean, it's a tiny ass little thing in a little handheld that's the size of a Sega Game Gear, and it's good enough. And so, all of this stuff is happening. Like when you told me about the OLED and how disappointed people were, I'm like, oh, I didn't even know it wasn't OLED in the first place. To be honest, I wasn't even aware that there was a difference, because that's how little I even pick up and play the damn Switch to look at look at the screen. So I think that to be honest, Nintendo, their strategy wins. If for no other reason, because if for the same reason that I'm a big movie guy, and do you know why I want a PlayStation 5? It's not because I give a shit about the games, because my PlayStation 4 works perfectly fine and plays games just fine to me. The reason why I want a PlayStation 5 is because I want that 4K Blu-ray player it has. And 4K Blu-ray players are expensive, so I may as well get a console at the same time. Cool, right? Nobody gives a fuck about 4K Blu-ray players except people like me that like to collect 4K Blu-rays, and almost nobody does. Do you have any 4K discs at your house for movies?
I have 3.
Okay, you have 3. Do you care that you don't have a 4K player? Because
I kind of do.
Well, I mean, you do, but you know what I'm saying. So you have a 4K.
But you
player.
Don't. Yeah. See, it's.
What do you use it for?
Yeah.
Do you use that 4K player? No. You get on your TV, your smart TV, and you stream whatever you want to watch. Hell, I do that, and I have Blu-rays out the ass. So, for a casual gamer, that's pretty much the way you're looking at it. You don't really care. The presentation, that's great. Okay, if you get 4K graphics out of a Switch game, great. I may not even have a 4K TV, right? But I have an HD TV, and that's fine, because I'm not looking at a Switch game thinking, man, I really need that to be 4K 60 frames per or 120 or HDR. I don't think any of that stuff. I think it just needs to play, and it needs to play well. That's it.
And you see, this is one of the things that I'm starting to notice too by people that have been buying Switches. I feel that Nintendo's strategy, it does work, but I feel that it's in the marketing that gets people to buy it. It's not the package itself. Because I know a lot of people that have bought a Switch, and after about a week to 2 weeks of owning it, they don't play it anymore. And I asked them all why, because they're like, there's literally nothing to play. They're like, there's nothing to play.
Which is crazy talk. There's plenty to play on the Switch.
There's plenty to play, but it's like the reason why I feel like they say that is because Nintendo's like, for example, not everybody wants to play Mario all the time. Not everybody wants to play Animal Crossing all the time. You know what I mean? There are certain games that some people will love to play, and Nintendo, I feel like, is slowly losing that audience. And it's still, like I said, Nintendo Switch is still selling gangbusters. I'm not saying it's not doing well, but I feel that more people are beginning to realize that the Switch is very compelling, because what you see is this gaming console that can play console level experience in a handheld. But once you finally get it, the experience isn't good enough for you to constantly keep wanting more. You know what I mean? Because this is why PlayStation and Xbox can sell their consoles at a loss, because the experience that they give you is so good that people want to keep coming back. Like, for example, my ex, she wanted a Switch so bad, and I kept trying to warn her. I'm like, the games that you like are not on Switch. The games that she will be interested in. But she wanted the Switch. She finally got it. She got a couple of games, and now she doesn't play it anymore. And she even told me, she's like, I should have just bought a PlayStation. And I said, I try to tell you that. Like, it's one of those things that, Nintendo got that sale. They got that sale. But do you see her? She's no longer going to be a customer. She bought it that one time, but she won't ever be a customer. But as soon as she gets a PlayStation, so vice versa. Here's my other friend. She bought she wanted a Switch, but she changed her mind and got a PS4 at the last minute. She decided to buy a PS4 Pro, and now she can't stop playing the dang thing. Right. You know what I mean? She's playing all different kind of games. and she's a casual gamer. She doesn't play. She's not like me, who's like hardcore play anything. But there's games that she likes. Like for example, No Man's Sky. You cannot play that on the Switch. The Switch will literally blow up if it tries to play No Man's Sky. You know what I mean? Minecraft cannot be played on the Switch. There's certain games that if you try to play that on the Switch will literally die. And you know, then sometimes, you know, once they get you into that, like for example, PlayStation, once they get you into playing games like No Man's Sky, Minecraft, whatever, you're gonna want to play some hardcore PlayStation game because she'll start seeing, oh wait, this game God of War is so critically acclaimed. Why is it so good? Then she'll ask people, and then she'll play it, and then all of a sudden, she's a fan, and now she's hooked. It's the same way where me and you talk about Marvel, because this is the difference, because this is what I'm gonna say. Marvel is PlayStation, DC is Nintendo. DC has the iconic characters. Same thing as Nintendo. They have the old iconic characters that everybody in the planet knows.
Right.
But Marvel, they don't have those characters. The only character they have that you could put on any continent and everybody will know is Spider-Man. They don't have those iconic characters, but they give you such an experience that you're willing to watch TV shows about obscure characters that are not even popular amongst comic book fans. This is what Marvel has done, and this is what PlayStation has done. While DC, who is like Nintendo, they constantly keep shoving Superman, Batman, Superman, Batman, Superman, Batman. They're Superman and Batmaning you to death. People are gonna watch it. They sell like gangbusters. They're gonna make billions of dollars in the box office. But eventually people are gonna be like, hey man, what about the Martian Manhunter? And when they finally do a Martian Manhunter, they make it bad. It's weird, you know what I mean? That's what Nintendo does. Finally, when they want to make a game from their other IPs, it ends up bad because the IP, because for example, really good example, Star Fox. If they the reason why Nintendo will not make another Star Fox game is because they cannot make Star Fox like how it used to be. You know what? Because when Star Fox first came out, it shocked the world. And there was nothing like it for a long time. When Star Fox Assault came out, there was nothing like it. But now you have games like No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous. These games that are basically space simulators where you're flying around in space with your things doing amazing things. Nintendo can't compete with that. So that's why they refuse to touch Star Fox. They will not make another Star Fox game. They literally, I'm not making this up. They literally let somebody else make they literally let a third-party company use Star Fox characters in their game. That's how scared Nintendo is of making a Star Fox game.
Right.
So, because the games that are outside of that Mario, Legend of Zelda, Animal Crossing, that can play on the Switch, they cannot play. Because this is one of the things that a lot of us fear about the Metroid Prime that's coming up. And our fear is kind of true. Because this game was announced in 2017, bro, and we haven't even seen a picture of how the game looks. That game is going through development hell because you know why? They don't know how to put it on the Switch. I'm telling you right now, the development team cannot put that thing on the Switch. They're probably waiting for the next Nintendo console because it's just the game cannot be played on the Switch. It will probably blow the Switch up. You know what I mean? And
yeah, I mean it is unfortunate. I mean, I think that Nintendo, they chose their path of lower power. The idea was always the game is more important than the graphics. So I mean, you know, they've kind of chosen their path, and I see what you mean about the DC Marvel comparison. I think the thing is that, you know, I think Nintendo's fine with capturing the casual, lower information, less investment crowd, and to leave the more dedicated, but maybe maybe somewhat more what's the word? The limited hardcore audience, And
But
so,
to be honest with you, like, not to cut you off, I almost want to say it's not even really casuals. It's the hardcore fans they're going for. The hardcore Mario and Legend of Zelda fans. You know what I mean?
mm, yeah.
Because I
Well,
like Legend of
they are
Zelda.
what they're more AAA. But I mean, you can see when they're they used to call it shovelware, but some of these games are good. But they still, I mean, Mario and the Rabbids have been a thing since the Wii. You know,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
Raving Rabbids thing, the tie-in Mario stuff, the Mario sports things.
Oh,
Animal Crossing in and of itself is
yeah.
is a thing. So even though the Harvest Moon has managed to go from like kind of a small time Japanese farming simulator to be something that people actually give a crap about on a Nintendo console. So they're building out. They are in a ghetto of their own making, but that ghetto makes them some pretty good bank and keeps them moving forward. Now my thing is, I think their thing is they need a killer app. Like every Nintendo console needs a killer app. And I don't know what that is. I haven't seen that killer app. There have been really good games for it, but I don't know if there's a killer app that you have to have a Switch for. But you know what? While we were all this talk about Nvidia and the chipsets and the possible Nintendo Switch Pro maybe coming next year, I'm gonna say I would think that many people would hope it's happening. There is a cross section of people who want performance and people who like Nintendo consoles. So I'm sure there are people that are looking forward to it. But the part of what kind of goes all into this whole discussion is about the graphical performance. And so this actually leads us into the next item we were going to talk about, which is the question of this is a casual, hardcore discussion. What is enough? What's enough performance for you? And I think that you have kind of a list for us to work through. And I'm gonna tell you what, I understand what all that means, but I know the top one is the 1080p 60 hertz. I know that's HD, and then 4K. The bottom is 4K 120 hertz, with I know that's 4K HDR, right?
Yeah.
And everywhere else is on the slider between there.
Yeah.
I would also note that we're not mentioning something else, which is below 1080p, because there are many people whose interaction with video games is on a daily basis is on their phone, and that is not HD. And so there's the unspoken part is like, what is enough games for some people? The enough gaming performance is, can it play on my phone?
Yeah.
So let's dig into this. This is very much I think this is something that I don't think too hard about. But I built my own gaming computer, so I had to think about this somewhat. And mine is not my gaming computer is not 4K compliant. I'll say that straight up. It's not 4K.
Yeah.
So, but go ahead. I'll chime in afterwards.
So, when it comes to what is enough gaming performance for you, like for me, I like the 1440p 120 hertz 4K 60 hertz. That's enough gaming for me, in my opinion. My performance, even though my PC can do 4K 120, but the only reason why it can do that much is because I'm gonna tell you a story. So I got a 6800, which can kill 1440p, and it's a decent 4K card. It can pretty much play almost any game 4K 60, maybe some games up towards 4K 90 or 4K 80. So I love that card. I absolutely loved it. But my friend Anthony needed a graphics card because, engineer, he needed to build a PC. And we could not find him a graphics card. But I saw a 6800 XT available to buy. and I was just like, I had some extra cash lying around. I said, if you buy my graphics card. I said, if I offered my graphics card up for sale, would you buy it? And he said yes. So he bought my 6800, and I got a 6800 XT. So, like I said, I didn't get it. I didn't get a 6800 XT because I was like, oh, I need the game at 4K 120. That's what I need. No, I'm fine with 1440p because my monitor is a 1440p 165 hertz monitor. And my TV, which I got on a ridiculous sale, by the way, is 4K 120. But I was going to be fine with just that 4K 60, 4K 1440p 120 hertz. But to be honest with you, I feel like if we ask majority of gamers this, I feel like most gamers will fall in the 1080p 120 hertz to the 1440p 60 hertz. Like, if you ask all gamers around the world, I think that is the sweet spot. And the reason why I say that's the sweet spot is because I build PCs, and I talk to a lot of people about this, casual, hardcore, all that stuff, and most of them always say, I just want to play at 1080p at the high frame rates. They always tell me that, and maybe I can play at 1440p, like 60, or they tell me like 1440p and it's playable. You know what I mean? That's what they always tell me. So I feel like that in today's gaming is the spot that is what most gamers want. I know there's some gamers that are just like you said, hey, as long as it plays on my phone, I'm okay. Or there's some gamers that are like, 1080p 60 hertz is pretty good. But I feel like most people who either buy a PS5 or buy a PC want to at least game at 1080p 120 hertz, and that's the minimum. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, this again, I don't think too hard about this. This is probably why I like console gaming better than PC gaming, is because this is not something that's high in my thought process when the thing about console gaming is that it's, by and large, it's about the games. Like which console's got the games I really want to play, not which console outputs the right frame rate and the right resolution and all that other stuff, because that stuff is sort of worked out when you plug it into your TV. So if your TV can handle it, it'll handle it.
Yeah.
So for me, I think the baseline that you have there is, I mean, it's fine. It's HD. It's not great HD, but it's HD enough. Now, the fact that I have a 4K TV means that if anything that works its way up to that 4K, hell yeah, let's go. But I can't say that I'll honestly notice a huge difference
if it can't do it.
I won't notice a huge. To be honest, I'd rather it run at a lower resolution as long as the frame rate is consistent. I'm old enough to remember when the frame rate, we were like, can we get 1080p 60 hertz, consistent 60 frames per second? And you'd be like, hell yeah, that's the best thing ever. And it's always, it's just like when dudes have cars that work on their cars, and they're like, I want to get a little extra quarter second onto my. That's great. It's good. All of you have fast cars. Trying to be a little bit faster than the next one. How much enjoyment are you really getting out of that? I think the only place where all of that high fidelity video matters, if I'm being honest, is in VR. When that VR is where the better that is, that to me, that's where the arms race should be fought, because I think the baseline is 1080p for TVs, if you have a decent enough TV, and then everything 4K after that, that's awesome. It's awesome if that works, but like if I have a VR glasses on, I want it as high res and good frame rate as I can possibly get.
I think I think when it comes to like gaming and not just adding in VR, I feel like 1440p is about to become the standard because 1440p monitors are getting very cheap. AMD really like hammered it home how important 1440p was to them when it came to making their graphics cards. Um, one of the biggest games on PlayStation, Demon Soul, which is by far, I think, in my opinion, the best looking next gen game, is rendered at 1440p.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You'll
Right.
think that game is like 8K or some ridiculous thing, but no, it's rendered at 1440p. I feel like 1440p is like the new standard when it comes to gaming because like you said, at one point 1080p was the thing. I remember 1080p was huge. You were hoping and praying that whenever you hooked your PS3 or whatever up to it, that it said that 1080p was able to be select. But now 1080p is like, peasant.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's
because
it's just because everyone has full HD, just like for the cheap, like that's not even
Yeah.
like a thing. 1080p. I remember when people were like, should I spend more for the 1080p or should I go a 720p
or
1080 1080i?
Yeah,
And then,
the
or should I
1080i.
spend more to get the 1080p? And I'm like, 1080p, obviously.
Yeah.
But now you don't. That's not even a question. Now is it 4K? I remember having
Yeah.
to justify 4K to myself. And
Yeah.
now that
it's
I
like
have it, I'm
4K
like,
is cheap.
yeah. Now people
know.
are talking about 8K and all this
8K
other.
is a new thing, which is an absolute gimmick, by the way.
It's a rip because it's not. It's not.
You
It's
can't
not
see
real.
it.
It's not real as far as like updates and
You'll
HD.
need
If anything, I'd say HDR is really the thing.
Yeah,
that's more
this is what I've
important.
been telling people. That's what I've been telling people. Like, people are talking about, oh man, you guys are so focused on this. We should be focused on 8K. I'm like, guys, do you know how big of a TV you need to even see 8K? Like, you'll need like almost a 200-inch screen because what they don't know is that 8K is not 2 times 4K. It's
Yeah.
not. It's almost 6 times 8K.
Right.
I mean, 6 times 4K because the way the numbers scale, each time it becomes it's a quantum leap. Because I think 4K is 31 million pixels. I think 8K is like 100 and it's like I think a billion pixels or something like that. It's ridiculous. It's a lot of freaking pixels, and 8K is an absolute gimmick in my opinion, and I feel like no one should focus on this. The thing that we should be focusing on is OLED technology so we don't get burned in. Like you said, HDR, where HDR looks actually good because there's some things that have terrible HDR.
Right.
And then colors. Really, really, I think the main thing, because honestly, you can get a 1440p monitor that looks way better than a 4K TV just because of colors. Because that in my opinion is the thing that TV makers and monitor makers should be focused on the most. Getting that color gambit to the closest to RGB, to Adobe and Adobe sRGB as close as possible, because it is an absolute difference when you go from a monitor. Because I've seen people who have monitors more expensive than that. They have $1,000 to $1,500 monitor, but it's RGB. Its colors are not good, and I'm just looking at it. It's like, man, you wasted your money, man.
Right.
This thing does not look as good as my monitor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's colors. Colors matter.
Yeah. I think that to me that's the only real thing to care about. It's like, though, not the the more pixels, but the better pixels and the better frame rate and all that stuff. HDR to me, HDR is the thing. I'd say it's the thing in the sense that it's not just gaming. It's a TV with that supports HDR will serve you well with movies. The higher the bandwidth, because all the service providers are, unless you have a shit service provider like DSL, they're constantly trying to up their bandwidth, and the more
Yeah.
bandwidth, the more people are using it. So 10 years ago, streaming 4K was laughable. Now I do it all the time, and so
Yeah.
HDR is just the next thing that's going to happen as far as streaming, and of course, on Blu-rays and whatnot. So it crosses over to movies and movies, TV, streaming, and gaming. So I think that, to me, that's what's important, getting HDR right. It's again, 1080p. I'll game on that. It's a freaking, the Switch does, and it's perfectly fine. If it gets better, that's great too. But I'm not right now. I don't play any games that require that kind of graphical fidelity, so it's not hugely important to me. Now, once I get a PS5, I'm sure I'll change my tune. But I'm getting. Like I said, I'm getting one for the 4K player, and whatever games I play on it, that's incidental.
I feel like, in my opinion, frame rate is almost. I will put frame rate over fidelity because some people, they call me bougie, but I can't play a 30 FPS game anymore.
Oh no, I feel that.
Because I'll start playing it and I literally will start feeling sick because the game looks so slow at this point. And I just ask myself, how in the world did I do this? Because it looked so fast before when I didn't know anything beyond 30 FPS. But now, since I've been playing games constantly at 4K 60, 4K 120, 1440p, whatever, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I see now that FPS really matters. And I feel that, in my opinion, from now on, maybe not this generation because of the Switch, but I feel that any game console that you can plug up to a TV should never, by 2023, should never be 30 FPS ever again.
Right. Yeah.
30
no,
FPS should be dead at this point.
Yeah. No, I feel that. There's no reason for it in terms of CPUs or GPUs that they're not playing at that level. So I feel that.
At this point, you can literally get a what is it thing? 10600K for like $150, and that thing has Intel graphics on it, and you can pretty much play any game you want at 1080p 60.
Yeah.
You don't even need a graphics card.
Yeah, I think that there's no reason for that. So I think we're in agreement on that. So I'll take 4K, but if it's just full HD, we're good on that. Let's just keep the frame rate high.
Yeah.
I do want to let's move on to something a little more controversial. It's something to do with high performance gaming PCs and gaming parts, and how regulations in certain states are going to affect the ability of gamers in those states, to purchase these parts. So this is all related to, I guess we saw something in the PC game where we're talking about someone trying to purchase a high performance Alienware PC to ship to California, and finding out that they actually can't do that because of some laws that are going into effect. To paraphrase/summarize, so California is a, as you may be well aware, they're a leader in energy efficiency, or at least they're trying to be, by law mandating energy efficiency. In fact, I would say much of the energy efficiency stuff you see on any appliance you have is because California first passed energy efficiency standards. And they're such a big state that no one's going to not sell in their state, just because they're standards. And they've done that for fuel efficiency in cars, etc. Because it's a big state and they can do that. And apparently, 5 years ago, there was a law passed with the goal of, in 5 years, having certain energy efficiency standards to apply to anything that's sold within the state. So then, and they, they do each appliance category, and for the PCs, it's a certain level. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. It's not. The numbers are less relevant than the fact that it's happening. And so now there, certain configurations that Dell is aware that, to do business there, there's certain configurations and certain components would fall outside of the, outside of the law, and therefore they're not allowing people to order these things. And this is apparently true in other states like Colorado, whatever. There's five other states.
Yeah.
And so what we have here is a well-meaning, and I would even say something I support, energy efficiency standard in a state that's large, that has large energy requirements already due to its population and its industry and its agriculture, etc. And they're trying to do the best that they can with their laws to maybe reduce their carbon footprint and their energy usage, at least while a significant percentage of their energy comes from fossil fuels or whatever. So I think that's good. The unintended consequence being power hungry, high performance PC parts suddenly aren't, so they're not okay to sell there. And so it becomes a question of, I don't ask the question, is this right or not? I think the better question is, how does the energy industry respond to this new law, besides just being like, we're not going to sell there? Because let's be perfectly honest, high performance PC parts are ridiculously power hungry to the point that what's the big deal now? Bitcoin farming, right? Bitcoin mining. And you Bitcoin mine with specialty graphics card, GPUs and shit like that, or taking GPUs and using them for what they're not intended to use in order to mine Bitcoin. And you're talking about people chaining together, how many, 100, 200, whatever GPUs to mine Bitcoin, and each one of those GPUs is a power hungry beast. And all that they don't do anything. That's the thing, is you can use, my laptop is plugged in right now and I'm using it to do something, right?
Yeah.
They're using it just to make virtual coin.
Yeah.
And it makes money for them, but it doesn't do anything. It's just
computing. It doesn't do anything. It's just, and I completely agree with you. I sat down and did some research about this stuff, and I agree that this law should be, that there has to have been something done because of, mining. But also, I feel like the law is very, 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 very flawed. And why I say that is because, so I looked into it, right? Mm-hmm. It turns out the PCs that are being the strictest, that you have the strictest rule for, are PCs with low wattage parts in it. The ones that are the higher wattage parts, they're giving them more leeway. Like, for example, if you buy a PC with a 3090 in it, you're given almost a 100 to 150 watt leeway. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Compared to somebody who buys, quote unquote, a 3060. You know what I mean? And I look at the law and I'm like, okay, I see what they're trying to say. They're not trying to punish the people who buy 3090s, but they're punishing the people who are buying low-end parts. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I feel like this law should just when they specifically made this law, they should have said that this thing shouldn't, because, you can actually tell the difference between when, like you said, when a graphics card is actually doing Bitcoin or, not doing Bitcoin. Because the way the like you said, the way the power is. It's because this mainly is, like you said, to go after what is those people called?
The the miners.
Miners, because they said there's the when the PC is idle, it should not use this much voltage. Which one of the things that I feel that one of the main reasons why I got an AMD graphics card is because AMD graphics cards are very efficient. Even the highest end AMD graphics card, I think it's like a 350 watt graphics card when it uses up full.
Let me just tell you, that's fucking crazy.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I say it's crazy because I remember building PCs like, 15 or so years ago. That was the total wattage for the entire system, and you had
for the size, yeah.
That's crazy. And I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it's crazy. I agree. That's a lot of wattage. It's the same thing that sometimes when I'm playing at 4K, my 6800 XT, sometimes I've seen it peak at 320 watts. You know what I mean? I'm like, damn, this thing is using up a lot of power. But you have the 3090, which I have seen go up to 600 watts on its own.
Mm-hmm.
By its freaking self, man. It can go up to 600 watts.
Right.
And it's just not AMD. Nvidia needs to do something about that. That is a very inefficient car. That's one of the main reasons why I refuse to buy Ampere. Their 30 series car. They are extremely inefficient. Like, they get hot. If you put a 3090 inside of your house, you'll love it during the winter, but during the summer, oh my God, that's a hot boy.
I think I was funny. I saw on Twitter someone was talking about they're heating their room up with their they had their graphics card or whatever, their computer. They're like, we're heating the room up, and it turns red when the fans turn red when the heat's going up, and I'm like, I feel that. This is again. I think this is where there's gotta be a smarter approach to. I mean, I know water cooling or whatever, but the thing is that the fact that you have to water cool, it says a lot about the power consumption. And it says a lot about the efficiency of it. Not that I get it. You get better efficiency and better whatever when it's cool, and so the electrons, the electricity and the signals flow a lot better when the semiconductor is not heated. I get it. Resistance and all that stuff. If you understand, the physics of what's going on. My thing is, why can't there be a more efficient architect? Maybe high performance is just anathema to it, because but there's a lot of I understand there's a lot of calculations when you're trying to render. They used to. Do you remember when Battlefield first came out? And they're like, the very first Battlefield, and they're like, you can have up to 64 people, and if you actually saw everything, it chugged your freaking. First of all, you couldn't do it on a console. You had to have a pretty good PC, and it would still make your thing chug along. If you saw lots of the battle, so there has to be, I think, smarter ways to go about it to offload some of this, or just to not have some of that. And I'm not smart enough to figure this out, but just not to have so much of the computation going on to on the GPU side. I've noticed the GPU was made specifically so that the CPU wouldn't have so much to do. And now they're starting to sort of come back together to figure out the best way that they can share resources and maybe not stress the GPU so much. There's all sorts of crap going on, but the point is, the shit is inefficient. And and in a world that we live in now, where we're all, or we should be, more concerned about efficiency, and especially when we're using fossil fuels to get our electricity. We've got, even if we have renewables, it's still wasteful. and wastefulness
Yeah.
has got to stop. This ties back directly into the idea about what's enough. What's enough for us? And people who buy high performance gaming components don't think that the baseline, that 1080p is, and they don't even think that 1440, 120 is enough. The only thing that's enough is the best possible.
Yeah.
And so,
I,
and they get caught up in this, and they get caught up in it for a reason, because shit is wasteful. It really
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And
And you said a lot, because that's absolutely true. Because like I was having this conversation with Leonard, who just recently built his PC, and he was asking me, he was like, man, are you gonna get the 7800 XT or the 7900 XT, the next generation graphics card? I said no. It's like, why not, man? They can play games at probably 4K 240. I'm like, Leonard, 4K 120 is more than enough for me. I mean, then I'll have to, like you said, it's so wasteful. Then I'll have to buy a 4K 240 hertz monitor or TV. Then I have to do this. I have to buy a new cable, all this. I said, no, Leonard, there has to be a point where we say enough is enough. And I won't say I really blame Nvidia, but Nvidia's 30 series graphics cards, all they did really was take their 20 series graphics card and just up the voltage. That's really all they did. Because you know why we know they did that? Because they just came out with their professional version graphics cards, and like the A4000, which is a very compelling card that I might think about getting. It's $1,000. I might get it. I might have to save up to it, because it's a professional card that has a lot of professional apps on it and stuff like that. And it has the power of a 3070, basically, which the rasterization of a 3070, which is a lot, by the way. 3070 can do a lot of 4K renderings and stuff like that. It has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. But here's the kicker. The 3070 was a 250 watt card. Guess how much the A4000 uses?
what's that?
100 watts.
So so it's less. It's less.
Yeah,
wattage.
Nvidia was just lazy. Nvidia was just lazy. Nvidia literally just 30 series here. They didn't go into making it a good architecture. They just created this graphic card that they just put bunch of wattage on, made them hot as a mother effer, just wasteful, very inefficient cards that were just powerful, and gamers ate it up like mad. But me, I looked at it like, hey, this 6800 is able to play games at 1440p, like 120, 1440p, 160, and 4K 80 hertz, and it's only using 270 watts. That is amazing. I'm looking at it like, that's amazing. That's what I was looking at it like. No, I don't want, because the 3080 is a 450 watt card. No, I don't want to use that much. You know what I mean? It's a waste. Makes your room hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that used to be like kind of the joke. It's like, yeah, in the winter, it's really nice. I don't have to run the heat.
Nice in the winter, but when it's summertime.
Yeah. I think that's, I think that this seemed like a big, like, oh no, what are they, what's California doing? And I'm like, it's just keeping it real. Like, maybe it's not a perfect law, but an imperfect law that's going in the right direction. And this is something that the industry really need to get a handle. They get a handle on it in other consumer level computing products. They get a handle on it when it comes to laptops. They need to get a handle on it with high performance games. There's got to be a better way than this, because and one thing that's really not really spoken about when it comes to the energy efficiency angle, what's not spoken about is all that heat. That's wasted energy. It's literally wasted energy. So all you're making all these things that are, you know, doing all these calculations and shit like that, and they waste heat. And when they waste heat, they're wasting energy. So there's got to be something that I don't know. Again, not an engineer. I don't know exactly. I just know that there's a lot of smart people that could figure out better efficiency if they're given the incentive to do so. And one incentive to do so is to be shut out of the damn market because you can't get your shit right. Because I tell you what, auto manufacturers talk that same shit about how energy efficiency standards, fuel efficiency standards were going to drive them out of business. And every one of the ones that were talking that shit when California was like, "Nah, we got emission standards and you're going to follow it or you're not going to sell here," they figured it out. That we get the catalytic converter on your car exists because California said, "This is our emission standard. If you would like to sell your car here, you're going to match it or you're not going to sell here." And Detroit figured that shit out. They got a catalytic converter, and now, their emissions were somehow magically they figured out how to make that shit happen. And every time the fuel efficiency standards change into California, there's a lot of bitching about how terrible it is for the auto industry, and somehow, some way, they figure out how to meet those standards. So if they do the same for computer manufacturers, I'm certain they've got a ton of smart people that work in that billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry. They're gonna figure it out. They're gonna figure it out. We'll be fine.
In my opinion, a graphics card should not go past 350 watts. In my opinion, that's my opinion. That should be the highest rated graphics card that you sell. Should be a 350 watt card, because why should I have to have a 1,000 watt power supply to play a game? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like, I can understand having a 1,000 watt power supply to render. I understand having a 1,000 watt power supply to do CAD work, but to game, that's just freaking idiotic. And it's like you said, if nobody told Nvidia this, what's going to stop them to make a 500 watt card? Like the 4090 will be, at base, it will be a 500 watt card and might even use up 1,000 watts. And that thing will turn your house into a supernova,
Yeah, I mean, it's they can figure it out. I think it's good personally. Again, I'm a casual. My understanding of this comes from a general understanding. But there ain't no way y'all do that. I don't hear Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft being like, what are we gonna do? We can't sell Xboxes there because they know they know that their shit matches it can fit it within it, and they take into account size and performance and heat and all of that stuff. So maybe
the consoles really are, in my opinion, Sony and Microsoft really make like PC developers look kind of dumb, because I really don't think people understand how powerful the PS5 and Xbox Series X are. Like, I tell people all the time, if you just want a game and that's it, why in the hell are you playing on PC? You're wasting money. Buy a console. What are you doing? And they're like, I don't know. I said, bro, the PS5 is playing games. Like, because people think, because a lot of console gamers, they don't know. They're like, they hear the word 4K 60 and they're like, oh, 4K 60 is not that good. I'm like, do you know how hard it is to play a game at 4K 60? Like,
apparently they don't.
Because see, the thing about it is, they thought because the PS4 can hook up to a 4K TV, or the PS4 Pro can hook up to a 4K TV, and when you go into the resolution settings, they see 4K, not knowing that is the UI that is rendered at 4K. The game, there's a reason why I tell people all the time, I say, PlayStation hides that. PlayStation, Microsoft hide. I said, why do you think whenever you play a game, the screen goes black? You know why? The resolution is changing.
Yeah.
If you had, as I told them, if you had a monitor that told you every time the resolution changes, you'll see it. And I had a monitor that did that, and it showed me, and I was just like, wow, I just changed to 1080p.
And you wouldn't even know. Who cares?
You wouldn't even know.
As long as the game looks good and plays good, who cares what the resolution is? That is my opinion.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, California, I guess, and other states, you know, they're going to. I think they're just going to make the industry work harder. So why not? They need to innovate. All right. So I think the only other bit of news, I guess, to discuss is upcoming games. I want to hold that off to the last segment. So we're going to do a little fun, something a little fun on the GamerCast. You know, we're old school gamers from back in the day. I think LADI, yeah, to be honest, your gamer cred is like so much higher than mine in that regard. But I do remember playing consoles from way back, you know, the Nintendo, and, you know, Atari and all that stuff. And you know, there's been a lot of consoles over the course of the last 40 years. As if it's crazy to say 40 years, but in the last 40 years there have been many home consoles.
Yeah.
And many manufacturers, many of which we probably don't even remember, but over the course of that time, they have to differentiate themselves. They got to name those consoles. And there's been a lot of really stupid names. Like Game & Watch. I know people like it, but it's okay.
The character's name sounds cool,
Yeah,
Mr. Game & Watch. That sounds cool, but the thing itself sounds freaking idiotic.
Yeah, and they had stuff like ColecoVision, the CDI, 3D. There's just a bunch. But,
What was it called? The Nintendo Philips CD or whatever?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But all that.
That was what that was the part of this. Yeah.
The CDI, yeah. Well, all that said, you know, I think you suggested this, and it's a fun thing. Why don't we just talk about our top 5 gaming console names? That's dedicated gaming console names that we've encountered. So, I don't have mine in any particular order. So I'm just gonna work my way down the ones that I thought from the beginning. I'm gonna say my favorite one for last. So the first one is gonna be, for me, is the Atari Lynx.
Yeah.
And in fact, I will give Atari some real credit. They had some for being after their 2600, 5400 Ataris in the 80s. They had some pretty interesting named consoles in the 90s, as they tried to kind of resuscitate their console making. And I'm going to be honest, their consoles were actually, hardware-wise, were really interesting too. Their problem is, they were too fucking expensive. The Atari Lynx, I only ever saw it on, I only ever saw it in like gaming magazines. Because I knew nobody who could afford an Atari Lynx.
Yeah, I seen it one time, and the only time I saw it in person, went to like this church thing, and this kid had it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Well, it was either that or the Jaguar.
It's either one. You may as well say they both had cool ass names, but nobody could have. I mean, you're talking about a console that cost like $600-$700 in the 90s, which
sacrilegious.
Yeah, you may as well have that. If you were a kid asking for that, my God, you better have rich ass grandparents, because that's the only way you're getting that bitch.
Let's do the conversion. I'm gonna put it with $650. $650.
Yeah, it's. I'm pretty sure it's close to $1,000 in current bucks. And I also remember they had like expensive ass games too.
I believe it.
That they were like stupidly expensive games. So you definitely.
Oh Jesus, that's about $1,500. What
yeah.
the world are these?
But hey, that's the Atari Lynx. I mean, it sounds like it's cool. Like it's named after a fucking jungle cat. I mean, why wouldn't that be cool?
That's actually good. Yeah, that is good.
And the Jaguar, of course, too. Both of them
Mhm.
unnecessarily expensive, and that's why they didn't last long.
Mhm.
Next one. This was one I really wanted because they had really good commercials back in the day. This is the TurboGrafx 16. This was a 16-bit console at a time when the Nintendo was still a thing. It had like their big. Yeah, they tried to. This was the one back in the day when they had every console had to have a platformer a la Mario or Sonic that had like some recognizable person. This was and Bonk was the name of that one. The TurboGrafx 16. I mean, it told you in its name basically said every reason why you should give a crap about it. It's turbo, so it's definitely faster than whatever. And I'll say this: their hardware was, for the time, was pretty damn elite. It was, and the TurboGrafx in it was a 16-bit console, and unfortunately, it was expensive as shit. Like,
Yeah.
like I remember,
There's a trend here.
it was expensive as hell. The only time I saw it, besides on the commercials, was Nickelodeon would have commercials for it, and I'm thinking like, God dang, I can't even get a Nintendo. How the hell am I gonna get a TurboGrafx 16? and then of course its big failing was that the Super Nintendo came out, and I was like, well, it's it for you.
Yeah.
The Nintendo came out. It was less expensive, and what everyone liked it's Nintendo. So
I remember seeing the TurboGrafx in Toys R Us. That thing had so much dust on it, man.
and it had this kind of strange, but now not so strange, controller. We aren't used to the diamond layout or anything like that. And it's just, this is one of those things where it came out too early. And I get it. You have a good idea. Let's get some hardware out, but you're too expensive, and you just don't have a killer game that everyone has to have.
What was with the consoles back in like the 90s, 80s, and 90s? They all look like VCRs back in the day, didn't they?
They're just like, it's just that they're big. I mean, with an understanding that their internal hardware was bulky. They had a lot of internal, shit that's just bulky, straight up. All of their PCBs are just gigantic, and nowadays there's the TurboGrafx 16 you can fit on a chip that sits inside.
Oh shoot! This guy used the TurboGrafx 16 and made a mini PC in it. Oh shoot, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's how big the box was. But I'm telling you, the total processing power of the TurboGrafx you can put on a chip inside a modern console. So it's not like, but at the time it was cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, it's cutting edge. Yeah, because basically back then the consoles was just one massive Raspberry Pi. Back in the day, they were just one massive Raspberry Pi.
Yeah. We have my next one, Nintendo's Virtual Boy. Not because it was a good console. I just like the idea of the Virtual Boy. And you're just like, what does that even mean? I'm just like, dude, it's VR. Do you need any other reason to like that? It's the virtual, and it's just, it sounds silly but also cool at the same time. Too bad it was not cool.
The thing that I feel like Nintendo needs to bring back the boy in their names, because I do miss it. The Game Boy, Virtual Boy, Game Boy Advance. Then they dropped it because originally I think Nintendo was supposed to be called Nintendo Game Boy DS or something.
Yeah.
And they dropped it and it's called a DS. But I kind of miss the boy, Maybe the next console be called the Switch Boy.
Probably not. I think they probably did the right thing dropping that.
Good boy.
Last two Sega Genesis. I have a special place in my heart for. First of all, the Genesis, the follow-up to the original Master Drive, Sega Master Drive, that nobody really had. When I don't remember anyone having one. The original, one of the only competitors to Nintendo, the real competitors to Nintendo, that nobody really had. So the Genesis was all right, we've learned our lesson. Let's go Nintendo. That gave the Super Nintendo a run for its money. I personally did not have a Super Nintendo. I had a Genesis.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. One of the best consoles, in my opinion, of all time.
The first official console.
Yeah, and it was like the Genesis was legit.
It was a legit console.
It was.
Really good game.
It really was. It's the console wars that we have now were based around how Sega and Nintendo fought with the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. And Genesis definitely won the naming contest, at least.
Yeah, and plus, I watched a little documentary on this, and it's kind of true. Nintendo was sort of that rich kids console, you know what I mean? While a lot of kids who had a Sega Genesis were, of course, not as wealthy because it was a cheaper console, and it made us feel like cool, like now that I was listening to that documentary and I go back and look back to how I grew up in the 90s, I felt cool having a Sega Genesis, you know what I mean? I didn't feel like I was like a sellout because it's sort of like, it is true, like the Nintendo was that rich kid's console, and you kind of felt like, he got the Nintendo, well, I got a Sega, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then we got Sonic, and we got, what was the name of there's a fighting game that they had.
Virtual Fighters?
Yeah, they had a bunch of stuff. So Sega was kind of hidden back then. And I'm going to round out my list with what I consider to be maybe the best, but definitely the best name for one of the best consoles that has ever existed. And I'm talking, of course, about the Sega Dreamcast.
Way ahead of its time.
Definitely, Sega Dreamcast was so. Well, let's just say the name is definitely better than PlayStation.
Yeah,
it's definitely better than
yes.
N64. It's
Yes.
definitely it's better than Genesis. To
Yes.
be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
It's better than pretty much any others. As one of the first CD-based consoles, definitely better than the other ones like the 3DO and CDI and all that crap. And hardware-wise, ahead of its time. The damn thing could emulate PlayStation. It could with some software, it could emulate a PlayStation game. So
The
that
thing
tells
had
you
an
everything.
internet browser.
It had it had an MMO in the form of Phantasy Star Online.
That thing was the Sega Saturn was so ahead of its time. It's ridiculous.
Dreamcast.
Not Dreamcast. My bad. Dreamcast was so ahead of its time. It's just ridiculous. Now looking back on it back in the day, I remember when Nintendo came out with Mario 64 and everybody was like, oh man, this is how you really do 3D. And then Sega responds with Sonic Adventure, and you see this 3D character moving that fast. I tell people this, like, in the engineering school that are in their early 20s, 19, they don't understand what I'm trying to say. I said, guys, 3D back then was really hard to do. And what Sega did with Sonic literally shocked the world. No one thought they could do it, and they did it. And it was just amazing. It was just amazing to see what Sega did and just how they went out. It is not because they could have sold consoles. It's because you could just get the games for free.
Yeah, they were undone by shitty copy protection. And the third parties, once they realized that, they were already inclined away from them and towards Nintendo and PlayStation anyway. So it was unfortunate. It was a good console. Really, if you can find one now, get that bitch. It's totally worth it.
The Sega Dreamcast is.
I'll tell you, one of the great things about it, I used to have one. God, I don't have one anymore. It sucks. I used to
still
have
have
one,
one.
and you know what I did with it? I downloaded and burned an emulator CD full of games, and I tell you, I played Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past on that bitch, and it was wonderful.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
absolutely.
the Sega
wonderful.
Dreamcast was an amazing console. Like people ask, like we talk about it all the time. They're like, wait, you could do it? I said, yeah, man. I said I told everybody I had like 30 games on the Sega Dreamcast. Only 3 of them I bought.
See, that's why it didn't last.
Only 3 of them I bought because you could burn CDs. There's nothing they can do. It is not illegal to burn CDs. It is just.
It's just illegal to buy the, And I used to play Power Stone. I used to play Capcom versus SNK. Obviously Sonic Adventure. There's just a ton. And the other thing is, one of the other things they did well is that they would localize or try to localize. If they couldn't localize, they at least try to subtitle Japanese only stuff. And you could unlock you can have region unlock on it, so you could actually play non-English, Japanese only. And Dreamcast and had a long life, well after it was gone out of America. It had a long life afterwards in Japan. So
I mean, it's still like, to be honest with you, Sega Dreamcast still has like a big cult following. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a great console, man, and I really feel that if Sega wants to come back and make a Dreamcast 2, I'm down for it. But
they
can't do it. It ain't happening. Like what they could do is they could just make a console and not put exclusives on it, and just make it like, like
make
they
it
could
like
make
a Steam Deck or something.
Yeah, they can make like for example, like you said, a Steam Deck, or like there's like it's a Dreamcast. It has modern hardware, but it doesn't have any exclusives. It's just for people who are just like, hey, that's kind of cool. I just buy this. You know what I mean? It looks just like a Dreamcast.
Where's the money in that? That's the question.
I mean, there is some money in it, because I would buy it just to say, look, cool. There's this this thing that looks like a Dreamcast, but it plays PC games. But
you should just just go get an old Dell PC, put a Dreamcast emulator on it. There you go. You got your Dreamcast. That's pretty much.
I technically still have a Dreamcast. Well, I won't say technically. I actually do have it. Still have my Dreamcast. I refuse to get rid of that thing. I almost ate my brother's arm off when he tried to sell it. No, we're not getting rid of this. But
so yeah, I was gonna say. So what's your top 5 list?
So I'm gonna go over my top 5 list, and it's sort of like a lot of these things. I felt like they were really cool names, and especially like how, the community around me viewed these consoles. For example, like number 5, I have the Sega Saturn. I was close to putting the Genesis. But I felt like the Sega Saturn was this mythical console that nobody could buy. You know what I mean? And it was such a good name too, because the name's Saturn, Sega Saturn. And they had this game on it that everybody wanted to play, but nobody could play it because no one could get a Sega Saturn. That was Knights.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody wanted to play Knights, but you couldn't get a freaking Sega Saturn. You know what I mean? Great name. Terrible freaking what is it? Like the way they advertised the support for the console. Because it really, this is at the time when the 90s was a time when there really wasn't what I would call quote unquote console generations. A lot of times we just kept old consoles for a very long time until a console got cheap enough for us to buy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Sega Saturn was, of course, the next gen to the Sega Genesis, but no one really bought it because it really just played Sega Genesis games on a disc. It just looked better and sounded better. The only games that you could not get on the other consoles was Knights and a few other games. I think like Virtual Fighter 2 or some other games. Oh yeah, Bloody Roar, the original Bloody Roar, which was called Beastie Eyes or whatever. I don't know. Thank God they changed the name.
Yeah.
But so after that, I put number 4, the GameCube. The GameCube, in my opinion, was Nintendo's best naming convention of their console because it was so simple. Because all the other ones you have to say the name Nintendo in it, which is freaking annoying. I don't want to say your name, Nintendo. You have to play the original, the NES, which is just short for Nintendo Entertainment System.
SNES.
Stupid.
N64.
N60. You constantly have to put Nintendo. But you know what? You could just say GameCube. It rolled off the tongue. Great name. GameCube. And the last time I feel that Nintendo tried to compete with PlayStation, and the third name on my list, the original Xbox. The name Xbox was a big time name because people gave it so many cool nicknames. My uncle called it the Box. There go the Box. You know what I mean? There was so many good nicknames. The advertisement Microsoft did with it, so good. All the names afterwards, freaking terrible. Microsoft, do better. Xbox 360. Xbox One, even worse. Now the Xbox Series X and S can't even keep up. Terrible names, but the original Xbox name, I like. Now looking at my list, I think I'll put Xbox. I'll drop Xbox to 5.
Right.
I'll drop Xbox down to 5. So number 2 is PlayStation. I like that name. The original PlayStation. Great name. It was a great name that Sony came up with. That Sony came up with to combat Nintendo, because it just rolls off the tongue. PlayStation. I miss Sony's original styling of the thing where they had the P standing up and the S as the P shadow.
Right.
It was PlayStation was a mythical console that anybody could buy. You know what I mean? It was the Sega Saturn, but you could actually buy it. You know what I mean? Everybody wanted a PlayStation when it first came out because it was actually next gen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It played games better than the N64. It sounded better than the N64. You know what I mean? It had a way better non-failure rate, because those N64 games did not last. Boy.
More importantly, I think it had the most impressive set of digital breasts selling the console too.
Yeah.
Nintendo wants to sell their consoles with Mario. Sony sells their console with Lara Croft Cities.
Yep, there's a lot of other games that are alive too.
Yeah, but I'm just like, you know who you are. That stopped and revolved around around blocky ass fucking Lara Croft back on the first PlayStation. You know who you are, and don't pretend like you didn't.
Yeah.
Don't try to pretend like you didn't.
You try to view the camera like you try to look up her skirt. Don't lie, or look up those graphics used to look so good to us. And to be honest with you,
They're terrible.
the PlayStation, they're terrible. The graphics are terrible, but it's charming at the same time. It's like for example, when I look at the original Crash Bandicoot, the Crash Bandicoots, not the original one, Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3, the graphics are not great, but they have a charm to it. You know what I mean? That this is the 90s. You know what I mean? Metal Gear, man, look. They look good until you look at those faces. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It look good until you look at the faces. But PlayStation, like I said, was a great console. It was a mythical console that you could actually buy.
Right.
And then my number 1 is, I completely agree with you, the greatest console name of all time, the Sega Dreamcast. I mean, the name just embodies just when when you think of a word that a gamer could come up with, Dreamcast. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm sure that PlayStation and Nintendo were just sitting there like, damn, why couldn't I come up with a name like that? You know, like, I mean, and it will sound so good with anything. The Sony Dreamcast, the Nintendo Dreamcast. It just goes, the Microsoft Dreamcast. The name goes with anything. But Sega came up with the name. Then it was the little portal. Like they had the little thing where it was like you're going into a portal. I loved everything about the Sega Dreamcast.
Am I right? That was like a swirl, right? Like
yeah, it was a swirl. Like it was supposed to emulate like you going into a portal. You know
this makes
what I mean?
me think of the Uzumaki. The word.
Yeah,
that's
the
the Japanese word for swirl.
I'm
like
almost
spiral.
sure. I'm almost sure that was where it came from. But
Kishimoto was playing Dreamcast, and it was like
Dreamcast while he was in college. Yep.
It's like, aha. Yeah, it's a legendary console. I will say, had a weird ass, but strangely comfortable controller. So
Yeah, that thing is probably, when you look at the controller, you're like, there's no way you can play on it. But then when you play it, my God, this is actually pretty good, you know?
Yeah, and then Xbox stole the idea of a big bulky controller.
Completely. Oh my God, let's not even. Oh my God.
Well, so what's for another day?
Yeah, we could talk about the best controller / worst controller.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, Dreamcast, Sega, you will always be remembered. Even though there's a lot of whippersnappers who don't even know that Sega used to make consoles. They're like, Sega used to make consoles? Yes. Look it up, guys. Jeez. God.
Yeah. And I think that's I think that's going to wrap it up for today because I think we've run a little long today. So we'll save our look at our upcoming August releases for the next GamerCast. In the meantime, this has been a good time. We've spent some time, the casual and a hardcore gamer, talking about the goings on in the video game world. But you know what? There's a lot of news in the video game world, and I'm sure we missed plenty of it. And if you got something in mind that you thought we should have covered that maybe we could cover in the future, you know what you can do? Get down there to that comment section. Hit us up. Let us know what you're thinking about. And of course, if you want to hit us up elsewhere, you can go to supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com. Just drop a line there, or at supernotfunnys1 on Twitter, and we could chop it up, talk about all this stuff going on in the gaming community. So we also acknowledge that our good friend Lotti's been dropping all the knowledge today about the various topics we were going on about. And you know what? He does other things online too. So Lottie, why don't you tell them where they can reach you on your social media?
Oh yeah, you can always find me on my Instagram. Anukinihun is ANUKINHUN. Again, it is Anukinihun. ANUKINIHUN. And of course my YouTube channel, which is just Kinihun25. I upload videos, different gameplay videos, different showing off what I've been working on. I also have some other stuff that I'm gonna start dropping on there. So maybe some gameplay of other games, of actual games that I'm building soon. So stay tuned. And also stay tuned to the GamerCast because we do got some more juicy news coming up soon.
Absolutely. We're always keeping our finger on the pulse of the pop culture landscape. And, while we're talking about that, are you subscribed to the Super Not Funny Show? Because if you're not, man, you can really improve your life by getting down there, hitting that subscribe button, and also hitting the notification bell to let you know when we drop new content. We do that every week, new podcasts and reviews and all that good stuff. Especially keep an eye on the Supercast as Suicide Squad drops this week, and we're going to be covering that later on. So all sorts of fun stuff like that. So, and we really appreciate you do that. And of course, we also have this in podcast form. You can check us out, the Super Not Funny Show, on Spotify and all sorts of other podcasting platforms. So go check that out. Support your resident pop culture commenters. We really appreciate that. All right, all you Fabricans and Fleshbags, it's been fun. Thanks once again for joining us on the GamerCast for this week, episode number 2. Come back again next week. We're going to do it all again. We'll talk about more stuff going on in the world of video games. Until then, I have been MO and LADI, your resident Fabricant and comment extraordinaire on all things pop culture, joined by the video game designer, anime expert, and lover of all things superhero, my good friend Lottie. And we'll see you guys on the other side of the thread. Peace.
Peace.